The Cohen Commission on Fraser River Sockeye releases its report today. This $26 million report, heard from 160 witnesses, covers testimony about serious political mismanagement by the federal government. This may be a landmark report on the state of salmon in British Columbia, and people are looking for action. The Conservatives will receive a copy today, and Canadians want to know, will this government commit today to implement the recommendations in this report?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Mr. Speaker, this isn't complicated. The Conservative government spent over $26 million for the advice in this report. It shouldn't have taken 2 years for the Conservatives to understand the findings that are so clear. Wild salmon are in trouble, and Justice Cohen's recommendations offer a roadmap to saving them. This government doesn't understand the economic and cultural importance of wild salmon to British Columbia. Will the Conservatives stop ignoring Cohen's report and finally implement his recommendations? The federal court has ruled the Department of Fisheries and Oceans has not lived up to its responsibility to protect wild salmon. The court found DFO rules failed to prevent diseases from being transferred from fish farms into open ocean, raising the risk of our wild salmon economy, which supports thousands of jobs throughout British Columbia. Why did the Conservatives leave open regulatory loopholes that put salmon at risk for so long, and when will they finally close them? Mr. Speaker, infectious salmon anemia has been diagnosed in sockeye smolts in the Pacific. This is the same virus that infected and wiped out almost 70% of farm salmon in Chile. We don't know the long-term effects on wild salmon or how long this virus has been present in the Pacific waters. What is this government doing to investigate this serious threat to our salmon fishery?
Mr. Gregoire, you mentioned the department is engaged in streamlining services, and it was also mentioned that there will be a reduction of just over $80 million over the next 3 years. In the short time that I have, I'd like to focus on two things. One, the Pacific fishery, specifically the wild salmon or wild sockeye salmon, and two, the Canadian Coast Guard, specifically the closure of the Kitsilano Coast Guard Station. So in terms of the Pacific fishery, Justice Cohen recently published his report along with 75 recommendations, and he was very critical that the government gutted the Fisheries Act before publishing these recommendations. But I'm wondering if you have allotted appropriate funding to carry out Cohen's recommendations.
We are working on developing our advice to government with respect to them. It's clearly not just the Department of Fisheries and Oceans that's implicated. It has implications for many departments. And so part of what will happen is that advice will go forward. We will offer views as to the various recommendations and what the government's position on them might be. The government will take a decision at that point, and associated with that will be some decision on what, if any, funds it may wish to allocate specifically to Cohen. So implementation. So at this point in time, there's nothing that you would see in the Department of Fisheries and Oceans budget that's sort of earmarked, if you will, Cohen implementation. Work is underway to analyze the recommendations and what the government's response to them might be.
Not only is this minister cutting fisheries science resources, he's withholding reports with crucial information on the status of Fraser River salmon. Yes. Without it, the department can't implement wild salmon policy to protect BC sockeye, even though reports show that some salmon populations are threatened with extinction. Will the minister immediately commit to releasing these reports, implementing the wild salmon policy, and when will they finally act on Justice Cohen's recommendations? In his landmark report, Justice Cohen was clear. Weakening fish habitat protection will put Fraser River sockeye in peril. We already had strong protections for fish habitat, Mr. Speaker, but instead of enforcing them, the Conservatives are getting out of the business of oversight to make it easier for their oil lobbyist friends to push through their pipeline projects. Instead of stalling, will the minister listen to Justice Cohen and reverse this government's reckless move to weaken habitat protection?
The Honourable Minister of